All right, so my name's Travis Houck. I'm here from Resideo. I lead the global supply planning organization for them. I do have the good fortune of not only speaking right after lunch in that coveted spot, but I also woke up this morning with a sore throat. So apologies if things crack throughout the next 20 minutes. A little bit about Resideo. So we are a public company spun off from Honeywell back in 2018. A couple of the major brands that you might recognize would be First Alert in Honeywell Home. A little bit more about Resideo. We are $6.2 billion in revenue back in 2023. I'm part of the business and on the left-hand side here, products and solutions, and lead the supply planning for them. A few more numbers about us. So we are in 150 million households. So very, very in-depth installations. And coming to installations, we install roughly 15 million products every single year. So 14,000 employees globally as well. So our products, they're found throughout the home. Some of the things that we make, thermostats, security systems, cameras, water valves, gas valves, fire extinguishers, smoke alarms. Just about all of you have at least one or more of our products in your house. And again, last thing around us, our 14,000 employees, they're located in 13 different countries. We operate and manage 14 factories ourselves. We purchase a lot of finished goods as well and distribute all of this product through 11 different distribution centers around the world. All right, so why 09? What was the business case for going with 09? A couple of things with our business. First, we are running SAP unconstrained. We had very little visibility to what our constraints were. In addition, we have a European organization, we have an Americas organization, two very different philosophies for planning. One was planning using MRP. The other one was using full replenishment. And within those factories, very differing levels of expertise. Some used system, but unfortunately, there was still a lot of manual Excel-based planning that was done. So we wanted to implement something that would resolve those issues. Additional concerns that we have with our business, we do have a lot of electronics, lead times on our parts well over a year, 2 years during COVID. So it's a challenge for us. And our business, we have different segments that are highly seasonal, things like gas valves. You want those in the winter. Promotional activity with smoke alarms, fire extinguishers. Those are very, very retail driven, very spiky demand up and down. And the last thing I want to just highlight as a challenge for us was a large number of NPI deployments. So we had to not only ramp down planning on the legacy products and work to avoid having multi-million-dollar write-offs of inventory, we had to meet our commitments to customers to deliver on X date. So all of these things, again, hard to do with an unconstrained SAP system, and hence the desire to find something better for us. So we had a very thorough process to identify which supplier we wanted to use. The 09 team can probably attest we were probably one of their longest sales cycles that they had. One of our success factors is we were given kind of a blank slate from our executive team. They said, go out, look at all the big players, '09, you can guess who the other ones are. They said, go out, see what they all do, identify what you like about them, what you don't like. So we had a core team, traveled the world and looked at demonstrations. And once we whittled it down to a manageable number, we then brought in the factory buyers and planners from our big sites for them to be a part of the selection process. So this change management has to start early on. Um, and so that was a benefit that we did. We brought them in. They felt part of the solution. It wasn't pushed on them. So, um, we went first with demand planning, focused on getting the front end of our planning solution done first. We chose demand planning over supply planning for a number of different reasons. Number one, much smaller team. Instead of managing 14 factories around the world, we were dealing with 20, 25 demand planners. So the demand planning team was also more experienced from systems wise. And at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that we got an easy win on the board for '09 and Resideo to build that partnership, to build that momentum going forward. So demand planning first, and then we got into supply planning. And supply planning is what I'm involved in, and I can speak in a lot more skill than on the demand side. So from start to finish, it took us about a year to design the solution and do the implementation at 2 factories, one factory in Scotland and one factory in Chihuahua, Mexico. So I would say a pretty tight timeline in order to design a solution to implementation. The longest part, the most important part of our implementation was blueprinting. So as I mentioned, we had European planning, we had America's planning, lots of variation, lots of opinions on this is how it should be done, lots of planning in Excel. But we established a core team that has stayed with the project, and that was back in 2023. That core team is still on the project today. And we've involved, as I mentioned earlier, the key planning and purchasing leaders from the sites. So we got together face to face. We, hashed out, this is what we like, this is what we need. And at the end of the day, out of UAT, we had a global design for, this is our planning solution for Resideo, right? So that was a major accomplishment for us. That was, one of the benefits of why we're able to go fast with our next wave is we designed it right up front, and now the next waves are just copying what was already decided. The next, so after we were done with blueprinting, the '09 team went off, they started designing the solution, and then it was on us to start working our data. From a data standpoint, data is key. We had, I forget the exact number, well over 1,000 POs with past due delivery dates. Anything with past due delivery dates, wrong capacities, it's going to doom your implementation day one, right? So we had to focus on getting all that information correct. So that was kind of the next phase for us. We had to get our capacities correct. We're still talking to the core team at the sites, getting them engaged and excited for what was coming next. And so while we were doing that, the '09 team came back to us and said, okay, we're ready. We've got the basics of your solution ready. It's time for you to test. So we did testing. The first phase was just with that core team of around 8 people. These are the people, making sure what we decided in blueprinting is what we were getting. We didn't want to discourage the factory users by having them see the working process. So we did the hard part up front. And then once we, '09, kept building on that solution, right? So then there was another validation test, and then there was a third session. And once we got to that third session is when we brought all the end users to test with their own data. Um, and so I was a little bit nervous, to be honest with you, at first, right? I was hoping to see, here's our solution, here's what we want, and then '09 to come back to us and say, here it is, hope you like it, and it's going to be great. But that's not the way it was, right? It was a reiterative process, and I think that worked really great for us. Instead of getting to the end and finding out there's something that you decided to design in the blueprinting session that wasn't going to work, you didn't have to start all the way over again, right? So these small steps ensured not a lot of rework in the design. And then finally, after the data cleansing, after blueprinting, after the validation cycles, it was time to go live. And so go live for us looked something like all the core team, whether they were from the international team, they traveled to Mexico. The Americas team, they traveled to support the European deployments. And the '09 team, they were our system integrators. They were right there with us. So 2 weeks of on-site support. Every day we did, the '09 team helped guide us through the day in the life of a buyer, the day in the life of a planner. And we sat with each of the individual buyers and planners in the factory. We had them go through their data. We had them tell us whether it looked correct. We're able to ask them questions to test their knowledge of the system. It was clear, which users were really strong and which users we, needed to keep an eye on, right? And we were able to identify problems up front by that, face-to-face interaction with our teams. So again, 1 year from design to implementation, I think was a really impressive feat. So I'm not going to go through all of the details of our solution. You can see, some of the elements here. A couple of the wins that I would at least highlight here. One was a demand prioritization rules. So now that we have visibility to our constraints, it was important for us to have a process of identifying what should we build next. And so we worked with our sales team, we worked with our demand planning team to identify the critical customers, the critical channels that if we have a constraint, we can then go in, '09 will recommend what's the most important thing to build. So again, this seems a little, maybe not a big point, but it does build, some buy-in from the rest of the organization that if there's a constraint, we're going to build the most important thing. Another big win for us is, and I don't know how many, are doing supply planning, but it's the question of, hey, we got a new promotion opportunity. It's X million dollars of revenue. Can you meet it? And when you're planning with Excel, that's almost an impossible task, right? It's just a guess. Now with what if scenario planning, we can use '09 with live data, run a simulation, increase the demand by $10 million, whatever it might be, and then the next morning see the result. It'll tell us what we're short. So it's a fantastic time saver for us that we've been able to use. So, here's some pictures of the core team, a lot of smiling faces during the deployments of 2023. There's not a lot of us. This is the entirety of the team deploying into factories in 2 different regions. All right, so on to success factors. One of them, that I think was a little bit of a deviation from our original plan was there was talk about doing a big bang deployment, right, and trying to do all factories at once. And we made a decision early on that that wasn't going to work for us. It did extend the schedule. It did cost, I'm sure some more money. But we took a phased approach of like, we're going to do a pilot in the Americas. We're going to do a pilot in Europe. We're going to go slow, but we're going to do it right, right? ERP deployments or deployments like '09, they're nowhere near 100% of successful implementation rates, right? If you don't do it correct, people are going to yank out the solution. They're going to become disillusioned with it, and you've wasted a whole bunch of money. And I can speak from experience having deployed a similar tool about 5-6 years ago at Honeywell. It was an IT-driven project, not from the supply chain and not from the business. And 6 months after deployment, the factory was like, "This is an IT project. I don't like it. I'm done." They yanked it out. So that attention that we put in front on doing it slow, doing it right was really very important. Leadership commitment was also a big deal, right? So my boss is a very strong proponent of this, executive sponsor of like educating the rest of the organization why this matters, telling them the benefits, telling them why they should care. So his commitment, securing resources, securing funding, allowing our teams to travel, was very important right up front. Data quality, I think everybody understands how important data quality is. I mentioned if you have 1,000 POs, if you have 10 POs, right? I mean, the impact that past due POs, incorrect capacities, wrong master data have, it's going to, make people really disappointed and frustrated. So having weekly meetings with the people that have been assigned, you're responsible for this piece of data, you're responsible for this piece of data. Those weekly meetings, tracking progress, tracking, whether or not they're doing what they need to, was really important. And unbelievably, the 1,000 POs that we had past due, they were under control by the time we were ready to go live. On-site, face-to-face meetings, that was a critical step that we had as well. Our business was willing to commit to international travel, Europeans coming over here, the Americas team going over there. Lots of international travel, but the advantage of being able to meet face-to-face for 3-4 days, is immeasurable versus trying to manage this over Zoom calls. And one of the things I didn't mention was the core team. The implementation was only a part-time job for them, right? They were still doing their day-to-day job. So without getting them out of the factories, without getting them out of the office dedicated, we would have lost attention. And so face-to-face milestones, I know it's costly, or face-to-face meetings for milestones, it's costly, it's a time commitment, but really important to your success. The incremental, the validation approach, the 3 phases I mentioned, CRP, CRP2, UAT, it worked well for us. So, change management. Change management is a challenge for us. What we did to overcome that, as I mentioned, we invited the buyers and planning leaders from our major factories. They are involved in the selection of the tool. They are involved in the design of the project, of the solution. Um, the team, um, even members of future deployments were brought in to observe and to learn. So the effect that that has had is that even though our first pilots took a year to deploy, our wave one deployments, what we're doing right now, they're taking 6 months to deploy, right? So you don't have to start from scratch to educate people. Why did we make these decisions early on? How does the system work? They already know what's going on. So, um, involving them early and often was key. And then again, '09 was our system integrator. I know there's a lot of folks, behind the scenes that helped out, but Joseph, Cherie, Abi, they were critical to our support. They are with us, you know, always at our sites. They listened to us, they challenged us, we challenged them, right? I mean, this was a give and take, right? I mean, it wasn't just here's the '09 solution, implement it blindly. It was, some of the conversations were tough, but that back and forth dialogue, I think, has left us with a really good solution, and one that I'm very pleased with. Right, so we're coming up on the one year anniversary of deployments, and honestly, we've had very few hiccups. Anything that does pop up, usually it's master data that we have to fix, and if it's something different, we have really quick support to get it fixed. All right, so now we've deployed '09. What have the results been? So customer delivery and customer past dues, these are at record lows for our business, right? Never been better. And you might say, well, did your inventory go through the roof? It's easy to deliver at 95% on time or more, but at the same time, inventory dropped by 13, 14%. So it's been a success in any KPI that you want to look at, right? So beating budget from an inventory standpoint, satisfying customers at record levels. So with supply chain, you're never either you got too much inventory and poor delivery or great delivery or vice versa. We're really in a sweet spot right now where everything is bright green, to be honest with you. So 2023 was very busy. We designed the solution, we implemented 2 deployments at factories in Europe and in Mexico. Our next steps in 2024, we didn't want to lose the momentum in either of the regions, so we kept going with another factory in Europe and another factory in the Americas. So in 2024, we are deploying the '09 supply planning solution in 4 more organizations, 2 different factories and 2 different buy-to-sell organizations. So a big lift for this year. And we're also doing vendor collaboration, right? So we implemented the first wave of vendor collaboration about a month ago with 5 vendors. So that's another big win. Looking into 2025, though, we have the rest of our factories that will deploy, right? So in 4 months from now, we'll have about 75% of our revenue on '09, and we'll knock out the rest of it in 2025. Vendor collaboration will continue to mature in 2025. And what we want to go next with '09 is to use '09 to drive our IVP process. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. We haven't gotten to the blueprinting stages, but IVP is where we want to go. And improving the order promising is something that is on our list as well. Looking beyond 2025, which is hard to do, things beyond 2026 that we're looking at would be to go to our key vendors, tier one suppliers, and get into their supply chain, utilize O9 to model their constraints and figure out how we can help them out. So tier one supplier integration, and then improving, the analytics between, now that we're collecting all this data, what are the analytics saying? Where do we need to go and try and improve? What can we streamline from root cause reporting as well? So that's our story. That was our results. Again, I would say, key to involve your end users as soon as you can. So with that, I'm not sure if there's any questions. I'm available afterwards. Just reach out to me, connect with me. I can tell you a lot more detail around, the challenges that we've had, the benefits that we're seeing, the processes that we've touched with O9. So just feel free to reach out to me. So thank you.